Okay, so let's welcome everybody. So first off, everyone should have data for their surveys. So I think group 6 was the only one getting data on their own. And then everybody else should have data now. I imported data for each project. So let me know if that's not the case. The plan what we're going to do today is we're going to start with we're going to talk about cluster analysis. We're going to do assignment 1 together in class. And then we'll break out into groups for the second assignment. We'll see how time works. But then I can just bounce around for each of your groups, see if you have any questions with your data, make sure everybody's prepped to go, because you should start analyzing the data based on what we've talked about the past couple of days, the past couple weeks. Cluster analysis is this one is really a good analysis to know. It's not one just based on data constraints. It's not one that you'll be able to do for your projects. Maybe a couple of you might have enough variables to do something like that, but for the most part, you won't be able to apply it to your projects. But this is something that will really help you out in the industry if you're able to do something along these lines. Okay. So let's yeah, make sure to have all of your data for your assignment. For your projects, have that analyzed by next week. And we're going to talk about reporting data and doing so in like business type settings where you're not necessarily talking to analysts, but you're talking to the CEO or whoever you're doing project for. Okay, so yeah, so that's next week. But let's talk cluster analysis really quick. I want to first talk about first of all, so let's dive into what a cluster analysis is. But I want to take a step back to segmentation. So if you have taken any marketing class, they've probably talked about segmentation. Can anyone want to give us like a quick kind of simple idea of what segmentation is?
I can take a wild stab at it.
Okay.
So it's like a group of individuals that are separated by either like age or income or other demographics.
Yeah. And what's in marketing? What's the purpose of? So you have a group. You have like your customers, for instance. You're segmenting based off different attributes. What's the whole purpose in marketing? Why do we do that?
We can like market specifically towards a certain group. Like I'm gonna have like a company would want a different marketing strategy for me and then my wife because we react to different things.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, perfect. Okay, so question for I want like a couple of responses here. How in your prior classes or in your business experience, how did you go about segmenting? How did you go about so you'll say like in marketing, okay, our segment, our target market is blah 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 blah. How did you come to choose that segment / target market / persona, right? There's different words used here, but they're all kind of the same thing. Anyone have experience with that, or have known other people to use that? How do you go about making that decision?
I have one idea.
What's that?
So I think just doing research on the product, so people who are like comparables, I can't think of the word, competitors, sorry. If you do some research, competitive research, and find out what their target audience is, then you can kind of base that off of what yours should be.
Yeah, how do you know what theirs is?
Well, I guess in the past we would like buy it from a research company like Gartner or something.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested to know how they know. Alyssa, what do you think?
So I work for an ad agency right now, digital marketing agency right now. And when we do persona research, it's a little bit of a few different things. Like, the client typically has data that they've collected on their demographics. We also have like research tools that we use to do more market demographics. We do like market research and competitor research, but we actually tend to segment our personas based off of like motivations, because demographics are like great and all with like telling you about people, but it's not necessarily like why they might like make a final purchase. And so there's a lot of people who can fit into a demographic who might not necessarily be a customer. So that's my experience.
Yeah, which is awesome. How do you usually get that data?
We buy it from it's like we use certain tools like SparkToro and other kind of market data research that they tend to collect it through like your data that you create when you are using the internet. But some of it is also we do like case studies and so lots of different ways.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's good. So I'll tell you, at least if you're if you're working for a major company, you're going to use data, and hopefully you're going along the lines with Alyssa's talking about, going more motivation, and we'll talk a little bit about that. That's like the ideal. You're using actual data to figure out your customers' motivations, okay? And you're segmenting based off of that. Then there's another chunk that's still better, but you're using actual data, but you're segmenting on demographics. And then there's another chunk that's just like, yeah, our segment is this, just because I am an entrepreneur and I know all. And so they just kind of that you're basing it off gut and what you think you know, but it's not really data. You may just be like, hey, we're going after this group, and you may think like, oh, it's because these other companies seem to be going after this group, but still, it's a lot of guesswork. You're kind of making hunches, and that's the majority from what I've seen. Okay, and so what we're going to do today is we're going to show like when you have data, and you can do this, you can get this data based on what we've done in class so far through surveys. Surveys is a great way to get motivation data, especially. But once you have that data, you can run a cluster analysis on it, and it will break the the people, your customers, whoever it is, it'll break them into groups based off of what it sees. So that it's going to look for natural groupings, people that are similar in different attributes. And then once you've broken them into these groups, you can then see, okay, how do these groups, what do they feel about our brand or our product? Which ones are most likely to purchase? Willing to pay most, right? So there's different things you can look at, but you want to see how they interact with your brand. So So I love like most everybody, if you are using data, and even if you're not using data, just when you think of target market, you're thinking demographics. And here's a perfect example of why that's not the best thing. You have two people here that would match demographically, both male, both born, same age, both in the UK, both have been in a past marriage. They live in castles. That's getting pretty specific, and they're wealthy and famous, right? But if you were going to create an ad to target Ozzy Osbourne, it's going to be very different than an ad that you'd create to target Prince Charles. Okay. So that's that's is that making sense there? You could take this class and or even like undergrads and people that their preferences, their motivations, their values, their hobbies, what they really care about, the type of social media pages they follow, what they really think about throughout the day. That is going to be a huge driver. If and it should be a huge driver in your targeting and in your ads, right? Once we know, okay, we're going after the Ozzy Osbournes. These are the things that they really care about. This is what their personality is like. You're going to make a much more successful like ad campaign that's going to get who you're really targeting, and you're not going to waste your time with others. Any questions? Are you following along? So in other words, what we can do is we can gather data about people's values or behaviors, and opinions, and then we can use a cluster analysis to break them up into groups. And then once we've broken them up into groups, we see how those different groups interact with our brand, and it's golden. It's awesome. Okay, I want to first do a cluster analysis using, I'm going to go to Stats IQ for the movie data that we did last week. And feel free to pull up your movie data from the survey we did last week. So just you can stay on this page. I'm gonna show you the survey. That was the whole idea here behind these questions in the survey. So their belief about mythical creatures, how much they enjoy national parks. These ones were kind of like beliefs and attitudes that had to do with the film a little bit. You can go more broad. Obviously, this was kind of meant to be like a fun example as well. But these are different beliefs that the customers had, that I guess these test screening viewers had. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run a cluster analysis based off of those. I'm going to pop back up to my Stats IQ. Okay, so those are questions 1 through 7. So I love how, so one thing that Qualtrics does really well is it makes it super easy. All we have to do is highlight those questions. The key doesn't matter on cluster analysis. It'll just use them all the same. But so all we have to do is highlight all of them. And then we'll go here to advanced, and we'll click perform cluster analysis. We'll click cluster, okay? And I love how simple it is. I love the analysis that we'll see is really nice and straightforward, more so than what we'll do in SPSS, and that's like a step up from other software, but taking longer than usual. But we're about to see why I hate SPSS. Okay. So everyone ran this and got 5 clusters. Right? Don't worry if you did not get 5 clusters, it's not because you did something wrong. So we have Q1 through 7. We ran a cluster analysis. How many clusters did you guys get?
I got 4.
4?
At 3.
3? Yeah, but we're using the same data. What the heck? So try this. You can change the number of clusters. Anyone that did not get 5, select 5 clusters. And tell me if it worked. Did anyone put 5 clusters in and it's like, oh, there's no meaningful clusters of 5, and so it ends up giving you something different even though you do 5? Anyone get that?
Yeah, I clicked 5 and it gave me 3.
Yeah, and it says there's no meaningful clustering in 5, which is weird because mine says they strongly cluster in 5. So in other words, this is all crap. It's I don't know what they're doing here, but they're not. It's wrong. I don't know whose is right, whether yours is right or wrong, but this is like completely random, and it's ticking me off. So I've made like huge complaints with them, and they have their engineers working on this right now, trying to figure out what's going on. But it's broken and it's not working. And just like I believe I've talked to you about this before. But if I exit out of this and I run it again, it doesn't actually run it again. Instead, if I do this, it'll just pop up and show what it already did. So if I didn't have this copied into other surveys, I would just expect that these are the results and I'd go off of those results, even though it's just the luck of the draw with what it's going to output. So I wish that it worked, and hopefully they get their act together, because this is like lawsuit potential stuff. But anyway, there's the output is really nice. You could see cluster 1 is high, like they believe you should protect the government. They should trust the government. Believe it should be nature with harmony. They're lower though on the watching horror and mythical beliefs and government secrets, and they enjoy national parks. Okay, so that's like so what you would do, and we'll go through this using a different example and different software, but you would go through and say, okay, these clusters, this cluster based off of this, these are government fans, looks like the pretty and they're low on mythical beliefs and stuff, so I don't know what would be a fun name for this. You don't have ideas? I don't want to get or like cluster 2, these people are like low on everything, so these are like there's no passion, so you could name them something that has to do with passionless or something like that, and then you could click create a variable from clusters, and it creates a variable here that we could go and test things out. Okay, so for instance, this cluster Grok, I used Grok to run a cluster analysis. Okay, so I had previously done that, which I'm grateful. And I was always wondering, like, man, why can't I get these to match? And it wasn't until I started sharing this with this analysis with my undergrads when I started realizing, oh, it's because it's not off, because everything's off. So if I take cluster grok, so imagine that I performed a cluster analysis, and now I'm going to look at cluster grok. These are my clusters, and I want to see, which cluster liked the film the best. Okay, so I'll deselect all of these. And you guys should know how to do this from prior classes. So I'm going to say, let's say enjoy film. That's maybe one. Now I'll make sure enjoy film has the key. And then I'll click relate. And it says there's a strong, significant relationship. So I'm going to click here. Here's my p-value. That's awesome. And I see here, okay, there's this cynical skeptics. I have 4, looks like 4 clusters that Grok gave me earlier. And by the way, when we're doing this, similar to kind of what we did with when we were doing qualitative data, but I asked it to like give these names, based off of their responses. So we have cynical skeptics, genre junkies, mythical believers, and nature enthusiasts. So there's kind of those 4 clusters there. I can click here to show pairwise to see, okay, I want to know which groups significantly differ. So looks like mythical believers is the highest, but did it significantly outperform all the others? So mythical believers, looks like they're here and here. So I see, okay, they outperformed the nature enthusiasts. I'm going to group this one too. Okay, mythical believers. Here's my cynical skeptics. They outperformed them. But then the genre junkies, it's getting close. Like we have a p-value of 0.165. So there's a 16% likelihood that the difference between mythical believers and genre junkies is due to chance. So we see mythical believers was 4.4 and genre junkies was 3.59. Okay. So that's how we would go about this, doing it with Qualtrics. Had it been reliable, but it's not. So isn't that great? How much money did they dump into this product, and how many people are using it? Anyway, there's me complaining. So what we're going to do, we're gonna run this using SPSS. Okay. Let me check kind of time-wise how we're doing. Guys, what we're probably going to do is I'm going to probably forget assignment 2. Just because I'm in a sour mood with Qualtrics. So we're just going to do assignment 1. We're going to do it as a class, okay? But know that this is a possibility. They should be hustling on getting their act together on this, but I think it's like a system-wide issue. But let's do a cluster analysis. Let's have some fun with assignment 1, okay? So this one, we're going to use SPSS. So hopefully everybody's Christian, were you able to figure out yours?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Well, follow along. Everyone follow along if you can. This is going to be like a typically when I teach this, you're very familiar with SPSS by this point, okay? But you guys, for the most part, aren't. So what we're going to do is we're going to first download, you can download these in any order, I guess, but we're going to download Stranger Things 2. I'm going to my thing on focus. So, okay. So we're gonna download Stranger Things 2. This is the data set. And then we're going to use these. These are like syntax files. So for SPSS, you could fairly easily do cluster analysis doing point and click, but we will need to do syntax for ANOVA at least. What these syntax files do is we're like a coding kind of, but I've simplified it for you so it's not too crazy. So we're going to download both of these. This is like the syntax to do a cluster analysis, and this is the syntax to do an ANOVA, which is what we did here when we looked at which cluster analysis. Which cluster enjoyed the film the most. It did an ANOVA. Okay, so that's what we do after the cluster analysis. All right, so I just I downloaded all three of those, and now I'm gonna open them up. I'm gonna start with my data set. SPSS, yeah, Elizabeth, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. So when I clicked on that link to get the trial, it just had me create an account on the website, and then I'm not seeing like anything to download. Maybe I missed
It probably went to email. Did it email you instructions?
Oh, okay. I'll check it. Thank you.
Is that what happened to everyone?
Yeah, if you go to your email, there'll be a link.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Okay. Go away. This is my data. Let me see. I'm going to try to zoom this in a little bit because I know. Come on. Get it to zoom in. So I'm sorry, it's going to be small for some of you. Charlotte, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I signed up for IBM and I'm on the IBM product services page that showed up next after getting the account. And I downloaded everything, but am I supposed to have, well, you know how before we could not open things? We had to go, we just downloaded, then we went into Qualtrics and then imported. Should I be doing that opening in IBM by importing?
Once you have it installed, you should just be able to see these are my Stranger Things. You should just be able to double click it and it'll open up directly into SPSS. It should recognize the file once you've installed SPSS. So
okay, I'll give it a try. Thanks.
Yeah, we couldn't do that with Qualtrics because there's no Qualtrics app, and so your computer it would not recognize it as a Qualtrics file. But these are all SPSS files. So once you've installed SPSS, you should be able to just double click on them to open. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, let me show you around SPSS really quick. So this is there's multiple views here. If you see on the bottom of this table, there's I'm in variable view. That's probably the default that it opened up to for all of you. But there's also data view. So if I click data, I see all the responses here. And then but variable view, it just gives you additional information about each variable. But one thing that's nice. So Qualtrics is probably within marketing the most popular like point and click stat software. Like for instance, when I was working at Nu Skin, most of the team used SPSS. They liked you to have some of this knowledge if you were going into like market research, analytics, and so this was a really popular one. It's used a lot in marketing and psychology, and so yeah, that's and it's user friendly wise, more user friendly than most stats software. I'd still say Qualtrics is a good step above that with user friendliness, but yeah. So if, for instance, if I want to go, if I want to see, okay, what's the average number? So this variable here, Stranger Things 2, is how many days they thought it would take to watch the full season of Stranger Things 2. So if I wanted to see, okay, what's the average number of days they thought it would take to binge watch, I'd click Analyze, go to Descriptive Statistics, and go to Descriptives. And then I would grab that variable, push this arrow to put it in the variables I want to analyze, and click OK. And then this gives me the information there, right? So that's like a basic one. If I wanted to also gender that one, so the way that I usually group these is if it's categorical, I have a little nominal symbol there. So like gender, that's going to be categorical. So if I want to see like the frequency of occurrences with the categorical, I can go to Analyze, Descriptive, and Frequencies. And then I can take that gender, put it in there. And then I see, oh, okay, looks like 55% female for this one. SPSS, it's nice. It's expensive. It's one of the more expensive ones. You could use R, which is like all like coding and free and pretty popular. R is another software, but it's but really huge, very steep learning curve with that. Okay. And again, in prior semesters, focused a lot on SPSS, did a lot in R, and which goes crazy with coding. Okay, this one's going to be. We're not going to do much coding here, so that'll be good. Okay. So any questions so far with like SPSS? Okay, with that side at least. Okay. Let me show you. This is a syntax file. What I've done is everything in gray here. These are all instructions. Okay, so when you see this glob, don't be like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. No, this is like a textbook, all the gray. The first part shows us how to do the analysis doing like point and click. And you can do a cluster analysis doing point and click, just like how I ran these. It's a little easier because there's like multiple things you want to select to make sure you're getting all the information you need. And so sometimes you might forget, like, oh, did I click this option on this part on this page? And so using the syntax is nice because it's going to do everything you want all at the same time. And there's two different ways that in the syntax that I have to do it. Step one is this one, and this is like the go-to. What this will do is it'll take the data that you put in there, and it'll come up with the best, like the ideal number of clusters based off of the data. Okay, So just like what we did with Qualtrics here, when I ran this, if only it were correct, it wasn't, but it went through and said, okay, 5 seems to be a good, like, strong grouping, right? But as you saw, that wasn't the case for everybody. So that's what this one does. The second one is that if there's for some reason you want a specific number of clusters, you'll just put that number there. So say, okay, I want 4 clusters out of this, you can put 4 there. So when I had you all click here and say 5 and to try to see if you get the same results as me, that would have been, putting a 5 there, okay? And you can see, like, if you want a specific number of, the instructions say if you want a specific number of clusters, you replace cluster num, which is what this was, cluster number. Put that back. You replace cluster number with the number that you want. Okay, number of clusters. But we won't be doing this one. We're gonna use the software to come up with the ideal number of clusters. All right, should we try this out? So here we have, okay, based off what I've said, what do you guys think we're gonna throw into this cluster analysis? We have these variables. What do we want to cluster? Takers? I'm going to be stubborn and sit here until somebody answers.
Can you repeat what the question was?
Mm-hmm. What do we want to throw into our cluster analysis? By the way, okay, these are these variables. So this is like how frequently they're doing different activities: exercising, learning, social media, socializing face to face. We have gender, and then this is the how many days they think it would take to binge watch Stranger Things 2. Okay, so that's our data set. We're going to throw into our cluster analysis. I think I saw somebody on the chat, maybe. Exercising and social. Robin mentioned that. What do you guys think? It's one option.
Would we want to do like 1 through 4? Exercising, learning, social media, and socializing?
Yeah. Could it hurt doing 5 as well, gender?
I guess would we want demographics, or would you want demographics to be out of the cluster?
I mean, something like gender, like it depends, right? You may be your company, like gender may be something really important for your company, and if you're targeting a specific gender just because of maybe you're a makeup brand, or maybe and that gender is going to have like a huge influence there, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends. But let's but you're right on. So we typically want to focus on behavior and what people care about, right? But demographics can also can still play a role, but we want to prioritize everything else here in this data set. But we're gonna try with gender, just because it shows something that is nice to show for you all to kind of to help us with this cluster analysis. But you're right on. We will not use 6 Stranger Things 2. Okay, because what we want to do is we want to create those clusters, create those different personas, and then we want to see what they think about our brand, right? And so if we're Stranger Things 2, if we're the Duffer Brothers and we're coming up with the next season of Stranger Things, we reserve that. We don't put that in our cluster, but we first create those clusters and then we're running like an ANOVA to see how they interact with our brand. Okay, so let's put all of these in just to start, except for number 6. So what we're going to do here in the syntax, the cat1, we're going to replace that with our categorical variables. And then the cont one is we're going to put our continuous variables there, okay? And we're going to separate them with a space. If we so let's just start there, okay? So what are my categorical variables?
Gender.
Yep, that's it. Gender. Okay, so here in the cat one, I'm just gonna type gender, and should like kind of auto populate here as I'm typing it. And then for the others, I'm gonna put them here. So we're gonna do exercising, space, learning. Come on. Auto populate for me. Maybe it doesn't want to do that. Fun. Okay, so I'll continue typing. Learning. Social media. Yeah, it wants to do that one. Socializing. Socializing face-to-face. So there are my variables. I have these 4 continuous variables here. And then I have gender as my categorical. These are all, by the way, these are all like survey questions on how often they do those different things. Then I'm just gonna make sure your cursor is anywhere on that syntax. So my cursor is down there, but it just needs to be anywhere within that, and then just click play. Okay, guess what? If you all ran the same thing, you all got the same numbers of clusters as I did. It's like using this thing called math. I don't know. Seems kind of weird. I don't know why you'd want to do that in a statistics class, but it's doing that and producing consistent results. That's weird, right? Okay, so here we have it's showing, you can kind of see it a couple of places, but cluster 1 and 2. Here it says like clusters 2. It came up with 2 clusters. Let's what we're gonna do is this little model summary thing here. You see, it's like it's not a really good cluster analysis. It's a little bit of above poor, but this we're gonna double click on this model summary. Okay, it's going to show the percentage of people in each cluster. So we have these 2 clusters. But what I'm going to do on this right window, there's this drop down, and I'm going to go to predictor importance. And what do we see here?
Gender is very important.
Gender is super important. So much so that if we go I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead, but if I, on this left window, if I go to clusters, and then on the right window, I select cluster comparison. I can then come over here. I'll go through this in more detail when we do our actual cluster. I'm gonna click 1, which is males. And I'll see, oh, 100% of cluster 1 are males. And for cluster 2, 100% are female. So what did this cluster analysis end up doing? It's just a proxy for gender. So that's no bueno. This is what we call like when you get something like this in predictor importance, this is like a swamping variable. And it like overly like it just kind of took over, and it's not really using the other variables at all in this cluster analysis. I'll tell you, cluster analysis in general, it does this, it likes to do this with categorical variables. Really, like it's rare that I have a categorical variable that works well. Okay, so let's do this again, but with without gender. Okay. Now, what I'll do, so to do that, I'll pop back over to the syntax and delete gender. You can keep this top one blank, that's fine. But if you press play right now, you're going to come up with an error. Because what this is doing, one is conducting the analysis, but also it's creating another variable, kind of like how we had with Qualtrics, how it created this this cluster variable to tell us which cluster everybody belongs to. It did that here as well. That's cluster N. So if I go to data view, it tells me which cluster everybody belongs to, i.e. which gender. And so what it does not like to do, it doesn't like to run this and replace cluster N. It's going to get mad and say cluster N already exists or something like that. So you have two options. You can either come here and say, okay, cluster N2, I'm going to create a different variable, or you can just come over here. I'm going to right click on number 7 here and just say clear. I'm going to clear that out. So cluster N is no longer there. So either way, it should work. So I got that. I'm going to press play. All righty. And we have 5 clusters now. All right. And you look here, this model summary, we're in the good. That's awesome. It's a better cluster. I'm going to double click that model summary. Here's my sizes. Those are nice even sizes. I'm going to click here on this right one, look at predictor importance. That's much better. Looks like it's utilizing all the variables. Okay. So we've conducted this cluster analysis. We know it tells us in the data which cluster everybody's belongs to. The only thing is now we need to know, like, okay, what do these clusters consist of? What makes them different from one another? So let's start looking at that. So on this left side, I'm going to do just what I did with when we're looking at the genders. I'm going to go here to clusters, and then over here on the right, I'm going to go down to cluster comparison. And then we're going to just select these clusters, okay? And we'll go and identify them. So first thing first, this it orders them based on how large the clusters are, not based on number. I don't know why it does that, but whatever. So I'm going to click on 1, cluster 1. And this is going to show me that that cluster. You can click on 2 to get 2, et cetera, okay? So I'm going to go click on 1. And here's the questions here's the variables we put in. And so this is social media, exercising, attending class, or doing homework, and then socializing face to face. Now, the white box kind of shows us how people tend to be, it just in general, from the data set, okay? And the line is like the overall median. So among everybody. So you see like how often they're on social media. The median is a 3 for the whole data set. Now the blue square shows us the median for that cluster. So social media, the median for everybody is a 3, but for cluster 1, the median is a 5. So these people are on social media more throughout the week than people in general. Okay, so I'd say if this square is on the edge of the box or outside of the box, then you're getting something that's a bit abnormal from the rest of the group. If it's kind of near the overall median, then you're like, okay, these ones are about average. All right, so this is where I like what they were trying to do with Qualtrics, but failed. I'm going to, well, let's just kind of look here at these one at a time. We'll do this. Okay, so here, how would you guys describe this group? So I said they're high on social media. Where are they at with exercising?
They're high on exercising as well. It's just on the outside of the box, like on the very right side.
Yeah, they're high there. So you better bet that they're doing social while they're exercising, because you got to do that, right? You gotta get those pictures, or it never happened. And then here for homework, low.
No
and
homework.
face to face is low too. Okay, so if we're going to name this group, like what's a good name for them that is pretty descriptive of the group? Any ideas? We have people on social media, exercising.
Influencer.
Yeah, influencer. They're not learning. They're not going face to face. So they're kind of like an influencer, right?
Yeah.
So what I've done here for the assignment. By the way, you can see how many clusters we ended up with. 5, right? Yep. Okay, so we have 5 clusters. Oh, okay. I didn't do that for this one. Okay, so we'll say like let's go with that. Let's go with influencers. Okay. What I'm gonna do this kind of for each one. I'm just gonna put them in this way. So let me kind of set this over. I'm gonna go to my data, and for the values here, I'm going to click on the values for cluster N and click on this little box that pops up. I'm going to say for value, I'm going to put 1, and I'm going to type influencer, and then click add. And what this will do, whenever I do run an analysis using cluster N, instead of just showing 1, the number 1, or 2, 3, 4, 5 for all the clusters, it's going to say influencer. So I don't have to constantly be like, oh, 1 is the lowest and or highest, whatever it is, and then think, okay, which one was 1 again? It's just automatically going to tell me This is the influencer group. All right. So I got that in. Now let's go to cluster 2. Okay, what are we seeing here? Overall, what are we seeing?
Okay, so this is low-ish social media, very low exercise, and kind of average classes, but on the low side of average, and then low side of average again on socializing.
Yeah, so these ones are the bottom of the box. I'd say like low. This one's a weird one because the box, the median, the overall median's right there too, like on the bottom. That's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of average for homework, but low face-to-face, socializing face-to-face.
Is this actual data from like watching the Stranger Things show? I think it's no. Okay,
No,
it's like this man. It's funny.
Okay, so what would we call this group? Low social media, low exercising, average homework, low face-to-face. Any takers?
Not active or
Yeah,
inactive.
Yeah. Inactive. Let's put that there. So I go to my values to
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you're saying on the third one with the homework, that is the median is, what does the left of the box mean? Like you're saying that's average?
Typically the left of the box is low, right? But do you see how that line is like super dark? It's because the overall median for everybody, instead of being somewhere in the middle, it's on the bottom of the box.
Okay.
So this group, their median is the overall median for everybody. That one's a little weird.
So it's saying like our whole sample is kind of low on attending classes. So like this like happened during COVID.
Yeah, the median for the sample is on the lower side. So let me just take a, come on. If I go here to the data, which one is that one? Attending class.
That would be like 2, like just because it's low on the sample, it just means it's below according to the options we gave them in the survey, right? So like if we said, did you go 2 times or 3 times or 4 times, and they pick, and like most everybody picks 2, that just means we maybe set our questions possibly too high depending on what
potentially. Yeah, so there's what we got? 128. This is saying, oh, a median of 2. So we got 128, so like 160, so 64 is going to be our median here. It just means there's a lot of people that aren't learning. It's kind of what that means. But we also just have, there are people, kind of up higher, but yeah, it's just kind of how we ended up having that. Okay, so we let's go to cluster 3. Low social media, high exercise, high homework, and average face-to-face.
So this is active. This would be active probably.
Yeah, but just not on social media.
Right. So like physically active or whatever, but the face-to-face is just
Pretty
average,
big
right? But
average. So
they still seem like
healthy
they're
learners.
yeah,
Healthy
healthy
learners.
Yeah,
We could
Yeah,
do
that's
something like that, right?
yeah, that would work.
Okay, so let's go here. Value 3. Let's say healthy learners. Done there. And then 4. Average social media, average-ish, a little lowish on the socializing. Exercise. Higher-ish on the homework, and the high on face-to-face. So the only thing that really stands out is going to be kind of that socializing face-to-face. They're somewhat average on everything else.
Just do average or socializers.
Yeah, maybe it's like socializers or socializers. Okay. And then number 5 looks like high on everything. They're on social a lot. They're exercising a lot. They're learning a lot, and they're face to face like a lot. What do we say about these people? Number 5.
You're like highly active.
I'm bomb. Just kidding. Let's see. Yeah, super active. Overactive. Maybe that's a matter of preference, but I know I can't do all those things higher than everyone else. Okay, gonna say click OK. All right, so now I have my clusters. I have them I identified. So when I'm running these analyses to come up, I'm not just getting numbers and I have to remember who's who. I have a name for everyone, so that's awesome. I can click out of this window. I won't need that anymore. And we could be done with this syntax too. Yes. I'm going to open up. Tanner, do you have a question?
Yeah, one quick question. I just felt a little bit behind with the on the syntax table. How did you get past leaving it blank?
I didn't. I just left it blank.
On the just the variable.
Yeah, I just left it like
right
this.
Yeah, because it gives me a warning and then it won't let me bypass that. I know you mentioned something there.
Yeah, it's because we're running a cluster analysis, creating a variable cluster n. It doesn't like to do that twice.
Okay.
So to get it to work, you either need to say, okay, this is cluster n2 and create a different variable, or what I did is I came here, and I would suggest this just to simplify things. Just click on the column here, and right click on it and say clear to clear it out, and then run it.
Okay, perfect. I answered it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions with this step? I'm going to open up my t-test and ANOVA syntax. I already opened that. Here's this. So what we want to do now that we've created the clusters, we want to know, okay, who's interacting with our brand the most. In this case, our outcome is how many days it took them to watch season 2 of Stranger Things. So we want to know, okay, who would watch it the fastest? Who watched it the fastest? Okay. And so we want to know, okay, can cluster N predict Stranger Things 2? So very similar to what we did here, where we were looking at, okay, can these clusters predict how much they enjoyed the film? And let me stick here really quick. So we're going to do this, get the same type of information. It's not going to be presented. Actually, it might be a little easier because we don't have to like sort the table and stuff like that. But we're going to get an overall p-value, but we also want to look at the p-values between each cluster, just like we did here. Okay. So if we wanted to run a regular, by the way, we'll do an ANOVA. This is another nice thing with Qualtrics is it runs the right analysis no matter what. If we only had 2 clusters, 2 groups, we would do a t-test. But if we have more than that, we're doing an ANOVA. Okay. We could do like the point and click here by going like analyze, compare means, and then go to one-way ANOVA, kind of follow those steps there. The issue is that we aren't, like how Qualtrics does this, we aren't going to get p-values comparing each category to, or each cluster to one another. So that's where the syntax comes into play. All we have to do is replace pred1 with the name of our predictor, which is in this case cluster n, and out1 with the name of our outcome variable, which in this case is Stranger Things 2. Okay, so that the out1 is super easy. The only thing with pred1 is that there's like 5 pred1s to replace. So you can either go through and do those. In my case, I'm going to just push Command F, or your Windows, do Control F. And I'm going to go to replace. I'm going to replace all of my pred1s with cluster n. Okay. That's Command F or Control F. Click replace. I typed in pred1 and I'm replacing it with cluster n. And if I click replace all, it'll just replace everybody. Okay. By the way, I know that there's some of you. This works in like all kinds of software, Excel, Word. When you're online, you can push Command F and it'll find things. Okay. So I got those in, and I'm just gonna. I'm gonna copy. I guess it'll autofill, but I'm gonna replace out1 with my outcomes. So there's only one of those. So I'm not gonna do Command F, Control F, and so I got it set up now. So yours should look like this. You have cluster ends there for all of your pred1s, and then Stranger Things 2 is your outcome. You have that there. And then you press play. And one thing that I hate about SPSS is it's like, hey, here's 5 gazillion tables, and we're not going to use all of them, but whatever. So our p-value that we're looking at, this initial one, like where this in SPSS gave us, I'm sorry, in Qualtrics gave us that p-value, that's here. Okay, so cluster n, something's going on with cluster n. At least some of these clusters seem to be differing from one another. So we need to investigate more. It doesn't mean that all of the clusters significantly differ from one another, but some of them seems like they do. So we're going to scroll down, and this box right here is just like this box, except instead of having to like sort and group, it gives us all possible combinations for all of them. I like how this is organized a little bit more. So this group here, this top section, it's comparing all of the clusters to influencer. Okay, so you see here's our p-values. They all significantly differ. the inactive, the healthy learners, the socializers, and the overactive, they all significantly differ from influencer. Okay. And actually, as you look down this, these are all significant p-values. So all of these clusters significantly differ in how long it took them to watch Stranger Things 2. How many days? Okay, so that's good. They're all significantly differing, so we don't have to worry about ties or anything like that. We could look at the averages. This is a nice little chart that's popped up for us. And what do we see here? If we're creating the next season of Stranger Things, who would you choose as your target market?
The influencers, and then the healthy learners.
Oh, I tried to do a gotcha. Why not overactive? They're the highest.
No, they took longer days to watch it.
Yeah, our outcome is how many days it took them to watch season 2, right? So in this case, higher isn't better. It just means it took them longer to watch. These people are probably overwhelmed with everything else they got going on, right? But the influencers, I mean, all they got is gym time and social media time. They got all the time in the world to binge watch Stranger Things 2 or Stranger Things 3. I don't know which season. Okay, so that's so yeah, these people watched it the fastest, the fewest number of days. So if I'm over here on the assignment, do the clusters you just created predict how many days? Yes. So which cluster took the least amount? High exercise, high learning, no. High exercise, low learning, high social, low face-to-face, socializing, yep. So that's our group there. Okay, so now that we know that, what would you guys, those influencers are our target market. So if we wanted to go after them, you can then think, okay, how do we swing this? What type of social media channels or like influencers should we hire to promote the next season of Stranger Things 2? What type of things could we add to the season that would attract these people? You could in your advertising as well. What could you use there? So if you were asked to target individuals based on web pages, what web page types would you select in order to target those individuals? So you could say like, okay, bodybuilding pages, that'd be a good one. These people are at the gym a lot, and that would so that's the quiz there. Any questions about this? We feeling? So I hope you can see like how awesome this is that we can run these tests. We can send out surveys. We can ask people about their beliefs or opinions or behaviors. You could use this with web data, looking at the getting like browser cookies, different things like that. You can do all kinds of you can grab all kinds of data, but we're able to then put that into a software, analyze it, see what these clusters or segments are, pick one based on how they interact with our brand and what they think or feel about our brand, and that becomes our target persona or target customer. Okay, it's not based off of age and other demographic information. That those have their place, but it's not going to give you the richness that's something like along these lines would give you. You understand a lot more about your customer when you're able to cluster like this. So, oh, let's see, Elizabeth, you're wondering if socializers and overactive to be secondary segment, or would marketers traditionally only target primary audiences? Well, here's the thing. So it's a question of, I mean, some people that you might target like overall, like groups. Is that kind of what's? Can you rephrase your question, Elizabeth?
Yeah, and I guess it probably just depends on the like with movies or whatever, they probably would make it a little bit bigger. But I guess I'm wondering, would they just go really hard at targeting the influencer since they watch it faster and then they get like more views and better metrics and stuff, or would they try to like target everybody, just do more so the influencer as like the primary and then have like a secondary and tertiary or something like that?
Yeah, good question. So if we lived only in the world of billboards and or we had like limited funding, then you might want to like especially focus in on one cluster, right?
Okay.
But if funding isn't a huge issue, you can in the world of social media, you can create different ad campaigns, and then based off of the different pages they follow, or if you're hiring influencers to promote the product, you could say, okay, who are our healthy learner influencers out there? Let's get them to promote the product. We to our healthy learners. We know that they also like these type of things, right? So this is the way we would want our show or our product to be presented in the best way to attract like this group. But you can do targeted ads based off of these things as well. And so if funding isn't an issue, you can kind of go after a bunch of these people. You could also see you could also approach it in a way that, hey, maybe you're pretty like you're pretty satisfied with where these people are at right now. What you want to do, but what you want is like, hey, let's figure out how to get these people in. There may be some other shows that overactives prefer. How could we present our brand to bring more of these people in? So it just kind of depends on funding, depends on competitors. This may be like a gold mine, because all the other similar shows out there aren't attracting these guys either, and so let's figure out a way to bring them in, right? So yeah, you can approach this in multiple ways.
Okay. Yeah,
but
maybe
that's a
they're
good
more
question.
likely to watch commercials or something, and you're like, oh, these are more valuable for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And there's other questions too. If it's a product, you could see like, okay, which cluster is the most likely to purchase our product, or who's going to pay the most for the product. You can ask different questions there, and they may differ on. There may be a cluster that has more funding or whatever, and so they're willing to pay more for it. So anyway, there's multiple ways to look at it. But it's after you have this, you can strategize. And it doesn't necessarily, there's no right or wrong answer per se, but at least you have data to back it up, what your strategy would be. So, okay. Alrighty. Let's so like I said, I'm going to, in fact, I'll do it right now. So for the second assignment, I'm going to kill that puppy. Don't worry about that. So just make sure to finish this assignment if you didn't already. We have the day 11 survey. So make sure to do that one. I'm going to say if your group has, let's just end early today. How's that sound? If your group has questions, start analyzing your data. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. What we're going to do next week is start putting together your dashboards. Start getting like all of that put together. And I'll definitely be bouncing around your teams as you do that. So we should have some good time next week. But I want you to at least go through and because so for all of you, you have your variable. So you all had. Let's see. I'm going to choose somebody as a. Let's go here. You all did experiments. Oh, bad example. You guys did too. Let's take this. So you all did experiments. So here in the survey flow, this group, this team has 3 groups. So people were randomly assigned to one of those 3 groups. And so if I went, and it's probably going to take forever. But those 3 groups, oops. It was AI Scribe. That's going to be like my main predictor. Okay, so for everybody, you're in your survey, whatever this for them is their main predictor. We want to know, did that AI Scribe, whether they were data privacy, accuracy, or service, did it impact the other variables, our outcome variables? Okay, so as you're going through and running your analyses, might take a bit, but you're using that as your main predictor, and you want to know, did it impact everything else? Let me just show you an example really quick. I'm going to use this movie one. Let's pretend that my clusters, that was the thing that I manipulated. Okay, so people were randomly broken up into one of these clusters. So one thing that I could do, by the way, this is where this would come in handy. I can just kind of select all the variables if I wanted. I could do like all of them. These are more variables than you guys. I'm just going to do those ones. And normally we do the key as the outcome. I'm going to keep it as a predictor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button here, and it's going to change what the key represents. So now that I've clicked this little arrow, the key is now the predictor. So it's going to test if this predicts all of these. And if I click relate, it's going to run 13 different analyses. And the ones that pop up on top are going to be like the more significant ones. So it predicts question 6, question 1, question 10, question 13, 11. But then that's about it. Beyond that, it's not predicting. Once it hits like there's no significant relationship, it's not going to predict the other ones. Okay. So then I can go through and look at the p-value there. I can go through and look at the averages and see which ones significantly differ. So it looks like all of them, but cynical skeptics and nature enthusiasts differ on how much they believe the government keeps secrets, right? So that's kind of, that's like for sure like one thing that you're going to want to do. And so you could do the same type of thing with gender. You can see if age impacted your variables. You can do all kinds of stuff like that. So that's what you're going to want to start digging into before class, just to have an idea. Okay, what are we looking at? And then next class we'll talk more about dashboarding and kind of how to present these things. And then that should put us in a good place, depending on how far we get on that. Yeah, we'll see. What I'm trying to play around with. So your final is going to be your presentation here on your results, and so we might end up in a situation where we're able to get at least some of those early. We'll see how it turns out. But yeah, that's the plan for next week.